of my portfolio managed by my team. Towards the end of the session today, I'll be sharing a lot more information with you on the programs that we have, some of the highlights in the portfolio and some of the cool things you can look forward to early in the new year. It's been an interesting and challenging year for us, as I think it has been for everybody. We've made lots of transitions ourselves in terms of our programs, obviously going fully online, and more latterly delivered hybrid, now that we can have people safely back on campus. I think a bit like remote working, remote teaching and learning is one of those things that really got accelerated this year and is going to be here to stay. I'm really excited about this event this morning for a couple of reasons. Firstly, just the fantastic response that we got. We had over 140 people register for this session. We can see some really good numbers on the call right now, and there's more people joining as I speak as well. So welcome to all of you. This is clearly something that's in demand and relevant, and I hope you get a lot from this session and some of the other follow-up events that we'll be doing afterwards. The second reason that this is really exciting for me is that we love to offer courses from our own academics, but we love to offer things in collaboration as well. We've run courses with lots of different industry partners over the years, and this is quite a big coalition course almost. We've got a lot of different expertise here on the panel today, and also in the programs that we're going to be running together over the next few months, you know, from a UTS perspective, from ITIC, from Paxus, from talentCRU, and potentially from others that we're going to pull in here as well. So as Steve said, you know, the panel is here at your disposal today. If you have any questions, do fire them through. We'd love to go through all of them in detail if we have a chance. I'm going to go through, as I said, our programs in a bit more detail with some slides towards the end of the session. But for the bulk of the morning, I'm going to hand you over to Trevor and then Phil and Steve, who are going to talk you through some of the key topics and trends in IT career transition, and some of the things that we're really going to deep dive into in future courses.
Awesome. Over to me. Hi, everyone. I'm Trevor Churchley. I'm the National Director for talentCRU. talentCRU, we are a IT professional services solutions company, part of a group of companies called AdCorp Holdings. Many of you may not have heard of our brand, but we're closely associated with a brand you probably are familiar with, which is Paxus IT Recruitment, of which my learned colleague, Phil Wilkinson, is one of the most senior IT executives inside Paxus. And we'll be inviting him to join the presentation after a few slides from myself. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll take you through our IT career transition course. All right, so I'm just going to quickly reach out to the panelists first. Everyone can see my screen, dear panelists? Thumbs up, very good. Always good to get technology right. So what we're going to do today is we've got a number of different presentations from 3 presenters. So I'm going to cover IT job search and digital branding. So whether you're a job seeker due to redundancy, whether you're a job seeker because you're looking for a new challenge, or whether you're looking for a change in your career, some of the skills and methodologies today I think will certainly come in handy. So just as a brief introduction to myself, yes, I'm wearing a suit there, back in pre-COVID days. But as I mentioned, I'm Trevor Churchley. I've more than 20 years experience in both the IT recruitment and IT professional services industries. I'm not only the National Director for talentCRU, I'm also a co-founder of a career coaching company called Talentology. We'll talk about side hustles, a bit of a taboo subject through this presentation. But Talentology is my side business, along with another panelist on this call, Michael McGalley. Say hi, Michael. Perfect, he's on mute. That's okay. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to kick off and talk about today's employment market. The opening statement, I think, never a truer word was spoken. Change is the only constant. Certainly in 2020, we've seen a lot of change. And this change is constantly changing the employment market or the job market, which can make it very challenging. You know, throw into that COVID-19 pandemic, a destabilized economy has obviously created quite a bit of unemployment. Obviously, with some of the news we've heard recently, with you know, with some vaccines coming out for COVID, you know, we're starting to feel like we're coming back to normal. But on top of all that, digital transformation, which is certainly not a new thing, it's been rumbling along for about 20 years or so, with the rise of automation, is creating human disruption. So many of us are feeling that type of pressure. We may be made redundant from organisations, or if you were a contractor, you may have experienced sudden job loss. This is really shaping today's modern employment market. It's not that there's necessarily less jobs though. In fact, digital transformation, and Steve will go into this in his presentation, is actually creating more jobs. The thing is though, they're just different jobs. And so therefore, from a change standpoint, we need to be constantly changing to be able to meet future demand. And that's what we're going to really focus on a lot today. As well as that though, we've also got the growth of the gig economy, flexible and remote working, as we've obviously experienced through COVID. We're certainly all, as today, working very remotely. And that's really creating a lot of change inside the workplace, certainly to the point of transformation. And the rise of outcome-based work and consulting is certainly being seen. And we'll talk about the gig economy later in the presentation. But at the moment, the Australian workforce comprises about 25% of what we would call gig economy workers. In fact, by the year 2025, studies have shown it will be more like 50 to 60%. So we're going to be going through a lot of change over the next 4 years in this respect. Less permanent employment, more gig economy, contracting, consulting-based roles. And today's presentation will talk you more through that. And also developing the ability to deal with constant workforce change efficiently and find secure new opportunities has never been more important. I think always being ready for change is certainly the best way to approach this. Never rest on your laurels. Never be in a position where you're feeling comfortable, because change could be around the corner. And if you're already pre-prepared for change, you will certainly be much better for it. So, and to talk to and sort of unpack this level of disruptive forces that are at play, I won't go through all of these, but you sort of get a sense that there's a lot going on. We've spoken about COVID and digital transformation. We've spoken about the gig economy and flexible remote working. The need for continuous training, which Steve Elbourn is going to talk to you about in the second half of the presentation, is now becoming critical to your ongoing career success. The skills that a graduate learns at university, by the time they've finished their course, can sometimes, some of those skills can be made redundant already due to the significant change in technology. So to really think about continuous training and learning is very important. The 9 to 5 working day and the 40-hour working week are certainly being challenged at the moment. I think the last time I worked a 40-hour week was a long time ago. The gig economy is certainly going to challenge that in years to come. Workforce automation is certainly accelerating. Traditional job search has changed. So there's a lot going on. And I think as a job seeker, or for someone who's looking at career change, these are really shaping, I suppose, your future. And to be able to plan a great approach, to be able to not necessarily find the next job for yourself or the next career step, but to future-proof yourself is very, very important right now. Just some job market statistics. I'm always very interested in statistics and analytics in regard to especially the job market. A job for life is a thing of the past. Gone are the days where our parents, the baby boomers and beyond, they would, when we were growing up, they'd tell us, go to school, get good grades, go to university, get a job, and retire when you're 65. Life was pretty simple. Back in pre-Y2K, the average rate of redundancy was 1 in your lifetime. That's moved along a little bit since then. The average number of lifetime job changes is now 12. The average number of career changes is between 5 and 7. That's increasing. The average job tenure is 3.3 years now, and it's trending downwards, as you can appreciate through digital transformation, the gig economy. The average tenure for workers over 45 has reduced from 10 years in 1975 to 6.7 now, and that's also on the decline. However, the average tenure for workers under 25 years is at 1.7, which is the same as 1975. So whilst we hear about the Gen Ys and Gen Zs always looking for challenge, the irony is that youth have always moved at a rapid rate to be able to increase their career scope. But digital disruption for digital transformation, automation, the gig economy are certainly putting pressure on these statistics. So once again, be ready for change and don't expect to be in a job for a long time. In fact, reaching long service leave, rather than just getting 8 weeks of long service leave, maybe they should be giving you a medal to be able to reach that particular milestone. Lots of reasons for job and career change. You could have been in the job market due to redundancy or a sudden job loss due to business change. That is happening a lot more regularly. 20 years ago, there was a stigma around being made redundant. Today, it's just part of life. It's part of the process of work. However, sometimes it could be around frustration or disillusionment with the job or the employer or the people you're working with. Could be that you're looking for more money, and that's totally okay. Funnily enough, a statistic is that more people leave work due to, let's say, culture or people rather than money. Okay, people want to be happy in their work. That's a really interesting takeout. Automation is certainly there, but as mentioned, and Steve will talk about this later, automation is not necessarily just disrupting jobs, it is creating more jobs. And so therefore it can create some amazing opportunities. Realignment of personal values and needs, looking for career progression, proactively changing skills to avoid redundancy. And as I mentioned before, and we'll talk about this again, forming a plan B, always having a plan B at the ready. And that could be a side hustle like I have, for example, to be able to make sure you've got something to fall back on should all of a sudden sudden job loss occur. Maybe it's just like you dislike an organizational culture, or just simply looking for a new challenge, looking to move into the future of work. There are lots of reasons, they're very personal, but they can be some of those reasons. What will employers be looking for in the future? Now, what I've focused on here is not the technical skills, which Steve's going to cover in his presentation later on, and I'm sure Steve Crooks will at the end of the presentation, but let's talk about what employers are looking at doing and the type of people they're looking for. So first, on the left-hand side, most employers are now looking towards hybrid workforces. So many more styles of players coming into a workforce. So they're really looking at gradually reducing the core of their permanent employee numbers and covering their level of specialisation is what makes them special to the market and differentiates themselves. But then they're also looking at taking on other forms of workers to sometimes outsource pieces of work to bring in levels of specialisation. And that could be through remote workers, gig workers, that it's on demand, where there's task-based or outcome-based work, and regularly changing engagements and skill needs to best suit current business requirements. The needs of business are changing so dramatically, especially in agile framework, that organizations, they need new skills quite quickly. And so therefore, they're reaching out to different parts of the market for that. What we're also finding with COVID is that more work is being done onshore than offshore at the moment. We've seen a lot of companies like Telstra, for example, bring more work in country, which is a great sign for our local economy and local job seekers. And hopefully we see that trend continuing in 2021. But rather than talking about the technical or functional skills, there's a real focus on soft skill requirements. Organizations now have this attitude that people are capable of being trained in technical and functional skills, and that's great. And finding learning institutions like UTS and ITIC are great to be able to expand your technical and functional skills. But then there's also soft skill development. And we're going to talk a lot about soft skills today, especially around self-promotion. But employers are looking for complex problem-solving skills, agile and critical thinking, creativity, people management, collaboration, emotional intelligence, judgment, decision-making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. And these are things that you can work on. There are ways of being able to work on improving your skills in these areas because they're really highly sought after. But before we go and look for our next job or a new job, we really need to be clear on what's right for us. What is the job that you're searching for? And it's critically important to take some time out to understand what you're looking for. Because if you don't, and you're talking to recruiters or you're talking to your network and you're not so sure about what you're looking for, it will become very confusing and you'll probably struggle with job search success. So a simple thing you can do is to sit down, take some time out away from everyone and prepare a list of the things that you're looking for in your next job or your next career step. And they can include things like your strengths and weaknesses. Now, of course, you've got to be honest with yourself, your skills and experience as it stands today, the culture and fit that you're looking for in the next employer or the next client if you're in the gig economy, your passions, your likes and dislikes. It's very important to be able to work out your likes and dislikes because there's no point taking on a job in a place where there's lots of dislikes because unfortunately your time there may not last very long. So really work that out for yourself. Your motivations, the type of engagement you're looking for, training, mentoring and support that the employer or your next client can provide you to be able to help you into the future of work and the future of technology. Make sure that you're aware of the locations you're willing to work. Are you willing to commute or not willing to commute? The salary, rate or fee you're looking for, the responsibility and seniority that you're looking for. career opportunities and progression, challenge, workplace flexibility, future skill demand. Really just sometimes it's a list, just a piece of paper, and write all these things down and really start to sculpt your objectives to be very clear in your own mind what you want. Therefore, you're able to articulate that to people you're talking to. If you're having trouble with this though, ask some friends, reach out to people. It's totally cool to reach out to people, or a career coach like talentology. We can certainly help. We help a lot of people when it comes to really defining what they're looking for. Or online, there's lots of career quizzes to be able to understand with your attitude, skills and experience and positioning, what could be good for you, to give you some ideas to move forward. So I'll take you through some traditional talent engagement models. I think everybody knows these ones. To get a job as a permanent employee, I suppose very popular right now, probably become less popular over time. There's a fixed term hire, which is effectively a permanent job with an end date. Is probably the best way to describe that. Part-time employees, independent contractors that are traditional 40 hours a week contractors, time material, temporary employees and casual employees. I think we all pretty much know those. But this is coming. All right, the gig economy, as I mentioned before, the rise of the gig economy is certainly coming into play within Australia. We're a little bit behind the United States, and we'll talk about that soon. But consulting and freelancing is really becoming popular. Fixed priced engagements, task orientation, where like a trader, you're quoting a piece of work and delivering an outcome. We'll talk about the side hustle soon. Side hustle I'm very passionate about. I think it's very useful. And it's very sometimes challenging in thought process for employers to accept that, but we'll talk about that soon. Team-based engagements, rather than just working by yourself with your own set of skills, maybe collaborating with a team or form your own tribe to be able to deliver an outcome to a customer. And that can sometimes lead to entrepreneurialism and small business ownership. Remote working, of course, I think we're all very used to that. Today most of us are working from home. And also off-peak working. Whilst the 9 to 5 working week, believe it or not, the 40-hour working week goes back to 1926 when Henry Ford popularized it. So it's a little bit old-fashioned these days. And so a lot of people now, with time being very flexible and remote working being very popular, off-peak working outside of business hours can be a great way of being able to side hustle or to be able to get flexibility inside your life to be able to have a work-life balance. Well, let's quickly take you through the gig economy. There's lots of words on this slide. I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but it's a fast-growing future way of working. Okay, as I mentioned before, 70 million Americans practice the gig economy every day, and it's more than just food delivery drivers. It's more than just Uber drivers. We're talking about knowledge workers. We're talking about freelancers. We're talking about people like you. And if 25% of the Australian workforce is currently in gig economy, and more than 40 to 50% by 2025, there's a very good chance that you may be involved in the gig economy very soon. But to be in the gig economy means that you need to be constantly on the move, constantly networking, talking to people, looking for opportunity. So it is a different way of working, and you can learn those skills, and we'll talk about that in the second half of my presentation. But there are lots of benefits to gig economy workers as well, not least of which is the fact that you can gain a lot of different challenge. You can have a great variety in life. You can form a small business. You can satisfy the tax office rules, of course, speak with your accountant on this, in regard to the 80-20 rules and the personal services laws. Because if you're working more on a task-based orientation and you're working as more of a small business, then that can really help you to be able to grow some long-term prospects around business ownership and entrepreneurialism. Who knows? You could turn into the next Atlassian. I'd love to be able to see that more in Australia. But companies also have numerous benefits to the gig economy as well. Freelancers provide a fluid workforce and allow them to be more adaptive to change. Wider access to hyper-specialized talent, cost savings, increasing productivity, increasing efficiency. So there are great benefits to all. You hear a lot of negative press about the gig economy, but I think what you'll find over the next year or two is you'll hear more about it. And, it's certainly worthwhile trying. It's certainly an alternative. One of my little passions is the side hustle. Very popular in the United States, very much a taboo subject, I've got to be honest, but side hustles are really booming. I myself and my colleague Michael, we have a side hustle. It's a passion project. But what side hustle allows you to do is to try new things that are not in your day job. But as well as that, it allows you to form a plan B. If all of a sudden there is sudden job loss in your life, you can have a plan B to fall back on. So it's not like you're completely out of work. But also side hustles, you can develop a completely new set of skills and experience that you can then bring into your day job. Employers can benefit from side hustles by allowing their employees to be able to try new things and bring that extra experience back into their ecosystem. So there are a lot of great benefits to side hustling, and I'd certainly recommend trying it. The good news is, as well, you can use it as an entrepreneurial tool where you don't have to give up your day job to become an entrepreneur. You can start a little bit on the side and then build it up over time. I know a lot of people have done that. So superpowers for the modern job seeker. I think there's a good list of things that are certainly worthwhile having in your job seeker toolkit. First and foremost is understanding the process of job search, which we're going to talk to you about shortly. Because all it is just another life process, okay? We have processes in our life all the time. Whilst it might seem a little difficult at times, if you learn and master this process, you will be more successful. I would certainly recommend a positive attitude. Unfortunately, failure is part of job search, and we've all experienced that before, but you've really got to be positive about it, because the very next call, the very next application could be the job of your dreams. Make sure you have a plan, have a complete digital brand and profile, a well-written professional resume, which my colleague Phil's going to talk to you about. He's an expert there. The ability to confidently sell yourself. It sometimes pushes you out of your comfort zone, but we're going to give you some tips today about that as well. A confident interview style. At the end of the day, an interview style is incredibly important for you to be successful in job search. Lots of hard work. Getting a full-time job is getting a job is a full-time job rather. You do need to spend some time doing it, and the more work you put in, the quicker the success you will see. Accepting that failure is part of the process, as I mentioned before. Don't be put off by failure. Okay, unfortunately, you can't be successful in every job, but it's just one. The next step could be that leading you to success. And prepare to be flexible. Whilst you may be on a certain salary, a certain rate, have a certain level of seniority, sometimes the job market may not have as many jobs of what you're looking for. So what I certainly recommend is be flexible. Sometimes when the market is down, taking a job to get you through can be a good tactic to take. It's certainly not necessarily going to be your end career goal, but it's a good stepping stone to get you back into the market. So let's just cover a couple of little pieces around the process of recruitment and job search. I think there's certainly no rule book on recruitment and job search. And what I like to think is myself, my colleagues here, Michael and Phil, we are experts in this process, and we're kind of like the insider. So we can give you some insights and hopefully help you with parts of your search. First thing I'd like to compare is 20 years. Is in the year 2000, Phil and I were just little babies in the recruitment process, in the recruitment industry back in those days. It was a slower process based on the fact that there were no job boards. You applied for jobs in newspapers, if you're old enough as us to remember that. It was a more quality laden process because recruiters had more time to look at your resume and more time to talk to you. All right. As well as that, digital transformation wasn't as disruptive as it is today, and redundancies were certainly uncommon. So it was a bit of a stigma back in those days. But if you fast forward to the year 2020, there are high levels of job movement. It's very easy now to be able to get back in the job market because you've got job boards that you can pepper your applications to. I certainly wouldn't recommend that. But because there is so much data, and I'm not necessarily saying you should feel sorry for the humble little recruiter, but recruiters are inundated with resumes all day, every day, and it makes it very difficult to run a quality process. In my opinion, the market's a bit broken. And we'll talk about tactics to overcome that. It's certainly a non-transparent process. I know one particular gentleman, an ex-architect from a very well-known IT company, once put in 68 job applications and didn't get one phone call back. As you can appreciate, that's very disheartening. It's very difficult to sometimes talk to recruiters to get the feedback, or to end users. So that makes things very, very difficult, because if you don't know why you weren't successful for a job, how are you supposed to alter your approach? And as I mentioned earlier, redundancies are very common due to digital disruption and COVID these days. So in 20 years, we've seen an enormous amount of change, and that will continue. The process of modern recruitment, yes, it has changed. According to the Business Insider, 70 to 80% of vacancies are not seen through job boards. That is correct, not seen through job boards, which is what an amazing statistic. In fact, 70 to 80% of vacancies actually come through networks, your personal networking. People know people. We're going to talk a bit about that very soon. So therefore, if you're only looking at job boards and applying through job boards, then you're not, unfortunately, seeing an awful lot of the available jobs, okay? Beware, okay? A couple of warnings for you. Corporates use multiple recruitment agencies to fill their vacancies, okay? They sometimes have preferred supplier agreements. And so therefore, if you're working with a Telstra or an IBM trying to get a job there, you'll probably see their jobs go onto job boards at least 4 times. Sometimes you're applying for the same job through 2 different agencies. So there's a point there, be very difficult about being double represented by 2 agencies at the same time. It can actually cost you success. Corporates and agencies do use job boards to do market testing, conduct rate surveys, publish multiple ads. So therefore, not every vacancy is real, which is unfortunately disheartening to many job seekers. You don't know that. Recruitment agencies and internal recruiters prefer digital contact and rather than having phone contact, which makes it really difficult as well. And like most industries, there are good and bad recruiters, so choose wisely. Really have a look at recruiters, get to know them where you can have contact, and I'll give you some tips on managing recruiters, and I'll invite Phil to get involved in that discussion in a moment as well. The channels of job search, there are a number of different channels you can use. So job boards there is one, but you can also go direct to recruitment agencies and develop relationships with good recruiters like Phil and like Paxus Recruitment. End users, employers also have their own recruitment teams and have direct application opportunities. There's social media. Many organizations put their jobs out through social media. But the best one of all, in my opinion, is personal networking. It's using your network to be able to be referred into jobs. And that pretty much is probably the biggest change over the last 20 years. The importance of personal networking, as I mentioned before, if 70 to 80% of job opportunities are placed through personal network, then you need to be accessing. You need to be talking to your ex-colleagues. You need to be talking to your ex-employers. It's really important. No, it's actually critical that you do this, okay? And we've got a slide coming up soon around how to best approach this. But networking not only gets you known to employers who may recommend you to jobs and vacancies, it can also improve your skill set, stay on top of industry trends, get information, stay on track with the job market. It gives you more information on what's in demand and what you should do next. You know, and social media is the best way to develop and leverage your personal network, particularly LinkedIn, which we'll talk about very soon. But if you're not using your personal network right now in your job search, then I would strongly recommend that you change your tactics. Working with recruiters, and I'm going to invite Phil to come on and to show his video and come off mute now, Phil. And working with recruiters is really important. A lot of people have a poor opinion of recruiters, but I can tell you through my 20 years of experience, there are some good and there are some bad, but the really good recruiters are certainly worth building relationships with, okay? And from my perspective, you know, seeking recommendations from your network to be referred to good recruiters is a really good way to get the recruiter to give you a call back and get to know them. All right, and treating them like your best contact. It's very, very important. Phil, I'd like to invite you to maybe comment on this slide. What do you think? What would be your tips of how to develop great relationships and to use recruiters to be able to get a great job?
If you're engaging a recruiter, be mindful how busy they are, and be respectful that they may only have 1 or 2 minutes to have a chat on the phone. But we do appreciate people who can succinctly talk about themselves. Perhaps don't try and oversell yourself. Just be a regular person. Excellent.
And I think one other thing is, however frustrating it is with recruiters, be nice to everyone. It's sometimes you know, a little difficult to not have the right feedback or to be rejected. But unfortunately, if all of a sudden you're airing your frustrations to a recruiter, the last thing you'd want would be then the job of your dreams comes up with that recruiter and they don't call you for it. So you know, be respectful, be mindful of that. But recruiters can be your best friend, but I'd certainly recommend talking to your network, finding out from the people that you know who the best recruiters are, and then make contact with those recruiters. That's a great way of being able to get the best out of your recruiter. Using job boards, I'm not a great fan of job boards because they're being used less and less these days, despite the fact that SEEK say they've got 40,000 new vacancies every day. Don't really think they do. But this revolution started in the early 2000s. The first job board was Monster in the United States in 94, and Australia's first job board was SEEK in 97. There are many job boards. Generally speaking, they all have the same jobs. Okay, so if you see similar jobs between SEEK, JAW, and Indeed, it's probably because it is exactly the same job. All right. What happens is that a recruiter uses their database and effectively then channels the work out into the job boards. But if you're only seeing 20% of the work through job boards, I would certainly recommend don't ignore them because they're a great barometer to what's going on, but don't solely rely on them. You should also understand that employers direct hire, okay? Generally for permanent hires, not for contractors. And so therefore, you'll find that a lot of end users will have their own internal recruitment teams, like their own recruitment agency, okay? The best way, in my opinion, to be able to find out more about requirements is you go to the careers page of that particular end user you're interested in looking for, and then maybe do a little LinkedIn search to see who you know in that company, and then use your personal network to be able to get a referral from someone that's potentially senior inside that organization into the internal recruitment teams. And what you'll tend to find is hopefully your application goes up the list a little bit. So you're not just a random application. We'll talk about that later when we talk about digital branding, but it's certainly a great way to be able to get to the head of the queue. And whilst no one likes anyone that pushes in to a queue, except for the person that pushes in themselves, at the end of the day, no one really knows. But I would certainly recommend to be able to get yourself seen in the best light, use everything you possibly can in your arsenal to be able to move up the ranks of a shortlist. So how to gain the advantage? As I mentioned before, a multi-channel job-seeking approach is critical. You've got to have a standout resume that's instantly recognizable, and Phil Wilkinson's going to cover resumes with you soon. A complete professional LinkedIn profile, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Get networking, use your personal network. Absolutely talk to everyone that you know. Ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Learn how to professionally sell yourself, and we'll talk about that later. Be curious and courageous. Being courageous is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It can certainly be a little bit awkward, but it's certainly worth it. And get active. Never stop trying. Don't be afraid. Fail fast. Give it a go. Don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Trying to get all the information on a particular contact. Sometimes it's just easy to make the call and just give it a crack. Be positive. No excuses. Get out there and have a go. And don't be afraid to ask your friends, relatives, colleagues, coaches for help. Okay. I think, especially in COVID-19 year of COVID-19, it's very important to ask for help. And in job search is exactly the same. If things aren't going right, ask someone, get their opinion of why it may not be going right. So what we're going to do now is quickly talk about your digital brand, okay? Your digital brand is obviously how you are seen on social media. It's very, very critically important these days, okay? And I'm going to show you some statistics to show you why, okay? But your brand and your personal network are two of your greatest assets, okay? This will get you further in life than, pretty much most things, okay? As the old expression goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And certainly by building your brand, you're going to be more noticeable. All right, question for you. And I know you're all on mute, so you can't answer this. I'll answer it for you. But what percentage of recruiters research their candidates using social media to influence their decisions? At this point in a presentation, I normally ask for everyone to shout out what they think. But let's just tell you, it's 98%. 98% of recruiters. Thank you, Michael. You've already seen the presentation. Thank you. 98% of recruiters research their candidates before making a call or getting in contact, which is why it's critically important to have a digital brand. In fact, 82% of employers use social media to attract passive candidates. Okay, so the humble little LinkedIn platform is vital to your success in job search and career transition. So I won't read through all this, but and I'm happy to share this presentation with you. Oops. Your personal brand, putting a lot of effort into your brand is really important. Your brand is your calling card. It's your story. It's your unique combination of skills and experience that sets you apart. Okay. And to have a digital brand and to take it seriously is critically important to you. Okay. you never get a second chance to make a first impression. If your LinkedIn profile is not at its best right now, and I look at it, I'm going to make a first impression of you. And that could be the thing that either encourages me to make contact with you or encourages me not to make contact with you, okay? And it can be sometimes a 7-second decision on behalf of a recruiter to say yes or no. And unfortunately, the only chance you get of making that type of impression is what's already out there, okay? So I'm going to give you some LinkedIn tips soon. First thing I would recommend is Googling yourself. Might sound like a very strange thing to do, right? Google yourself to work out what is on the net about you, because I can tell you that recruiters, they Google you. They want to know if they're looking at a good potential hire or someone that's got a checkered past, okay? So do this exercise. Google yourself, see what comes up, and if on the first page there's something that isn't so good, especially like your Facebook profile or what you did last summer, well, maybe you need to start looking at an expert to be able to make sure that your first Google page is looking immaculate. Mine looks pretty good. It's all the things that I want people to see in me from a professional standpoint. Sorry, I got Google talking to me as well. Okay, LinkedIn. Now, I think we all know what LinkedIn is. Some people are not so sure about using LinkedIn. It's really up to you, but it is the most effective and influential social networking tool for the professional world, okay? There are many other platforms out there. We focus personal branding on LinkedIn because it is so widely used, okay? A couple of stats here. Formed in 2002, there are 690 million members, of which 260 use it regularly. 11 million Australian users, all right? So that's a pretty high percentage of the Australian population that use LinkedIn, and it's an even higher percentage of the IT population. 40% of active users use LinkedIn daily, okay? This is a very, very important platform to you for job search and career transition. There are, 61 million users at senior level and 40 million make decisions. Wow, it's pretty cool. And as mentioned, 98% of recruiters use this platform as well. So if you're not there or you're not looking great, then that's going to have a bearing on your success. Should you have a LinkedIn profile? To me, the answer is simple. It's yes, you should have a profile. Oops. Okay. It's a way of telling your professional story. It's a way of making yourself look good at that first impression stage. Okay. So very much I would recommend it if you don't have one. But if you do have one or you don't have one, here are some little tips of how to get more out of it. So add a customized wallpaper background. Okay. If you're looking at your profile and you've got something that's blank, you're missing out on an opportunity to be able to promote yourself. Okay. To make it look amazing. All right. If you don't have a photo, not ideal, okay? So get yourself a head and shoulder shot. Customize your headline, update your contact information, develop a killer summary focusing on your story, something that's exciting, something that's interesting, something that's about you. If you have a great photo, you will have 21 times more profile views, 9 more connection requests, and 36 more messages received. You'll have a positive first impression, okay? And there's a few tips there for taking a great photo. Don't go and spend $500 on a photo. Your iPhone is a powerful enough device to be able to take a great shot, but do not take a selfie, all right? I am the king of selfies, but don't take a selfie because it doesn't look so good, okay? Get some of your friends or relatives to take a lovely head and shoulders shot. Make sure you have front lights to make sure you don't have shadowing like you've been punched in the eye, all right? But make sure that it's professional. Like you're going to a job interview. Remember, this is first impression. Don't have one of these. Okay, Michael, when you see one of these, what are you thinking?
Who is this person? Why are they hiding?
Exactly.
Suspicion.
Yeah, and we've surveyed a lot of people, and that's pretty much 90% of what people say. And Michael, why shouldn't you have one of these ones?
Is this person reliable? Is he good for my brand? Is he good for my business? No.
Unless, of course, you're running a party company, okay? So maybe not your holiday snapshots and no selfies, as I mentioned before. Your banner is very important. It's an opportunity to create attention of your profile because it's one of the things we're going to look at. We look at your photo and we look at your banner straight away, okay? So use this as a great opportunity. If you're in technology and you've got CCIE qualifications, maybe put the logos up there. That'd be pretty cool. Advertise things, talk about your mission statement, maybe your seniority, experience. I've got my 2 company logos on there with some light bulbs that, from my perspective, present a positive light, pardon the pun, of course. We can, in our talentology coaching business, and what you'll find in the paid version of our IT career transition course, we actually give you instructions and help you on a step-by-step guide to create an amazing banner. It's very simple to do. Have a headline. Okay, headlines are really important because what we're looking for is not just obviously what we just showed you, but your headline tells us a story in kind of like 10 words or less. All right, here's my headline. It creates that impression, okay? And your headline, when someone's searching for you, will also be seen in the search results, as you can see there in the windows. All right, so make sure that you come up with one. It doesn't need to be your job title. It can, like for mine, I'm talking about some of my passions and the fact that I'm a father of 4, and I'm passionate about that as well. Okay, so it can be whatever you want it to be, but make sure that it's professional and it tells your story. It's like the intro to your story, your personal professional story. Make sure that your contact information is up to date. Okay, if you want recruiters to call you, then make sure that you're showing your phone number, all right, your email address or your websites. All right, make sure it's a really simple step to make. Go and check it on your LinkedIn profile now. It's really easy to update. Make sure that you have a good summary, okay? This might be the opening summary of your resume. That's totally cool. Tell your story, make it engaging, make it interesting. Your experience, make sure that you are fully updating this particular section, because if you do, it's worthwhile. For 5 times more connection requests, 8 times more profile views, 10 times more messages, and as well as that, the LinkedIn algorithms will obviously then start looking at your the words that you've used, and you'll feature higher in the search results, all of which are helping you into job search success. Okay, add examples of your work, your website. If you've got a side hustle, that's totally cool. Whatever you want to do, that's totally fine, but make sure this is fully complete. Okay, if you've got volunteer experience, by the way, many of us do, which is a great thing to do, that'll also create 6 times more profile views and create some great experience. So tips for creating an amazing profile is stand out from the crowd and get noticed. It takes time to develop a great LinkedIn profile, okay? You may not be able to do it in one sitting. And to be honest with you, I change mine probably at least once a month. I have a look at it and make sure that it's right. Focus and discipline, right? Make your brand and your image are your superpowers, so treat them with importance. Block out time to get this done. Lock yourself away. Remove the distractions. There's no excuses to not having a great LinkedIn profile. Approach and behavior. Make sure you create some healthy habits and allocate small amounts of time regularly to be able to update your profile like I do. It's a great way of making sure things are up to date. And if you're looking for some cool LinkedIn tricks and features, right? Many of us have got business cards, but you don't need them anymore. If you notice here in the circle on the left-hand side, connecting with others, there's 4 little squares. So if you're on your mobile device, if you click that, what comes up with is a QR code. Obviously through COVID, we love our QR codes. This is an opportunity for you to be able to either scan or be scanned, and you will have an instant LinkedIn request sent to you, or you sending to someone without even having to exchange business cards. All right. So a very good COVID-19 social distancing thing to do. Take advantage of it. You can also build a resume and share it by PDF through the drop downs on the main page of your profile. Okay. So if you need a really quick resume, off you go. And the third one, this is a really quirky one. You can record your name and your elevator speech on your profile. If you have a look at that little speaker on next to my profile, and you're most welcome to go to my profile, have a little look and click it. I've got my elevator speech sitting on there. Okay, so, and you know, if you've got a name that's difficult to pronounce, it's a good way to do it, but you can also record an elevator speech. So here's a whole bunch of stuff that we will cover in our full course. So we go back through all of this stuff, but we take greater detail and more time to be able to help you to be able to get the best LinkedIn profile ever, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well, including talking about the LinkedIn algorithms, how they work, how to get the most out of that, because ultimately this is about being noticed, okay? We also talk about content, pre-scheduling content, developing content on social platforms, how you like, share, post, blog, create thought leadership. This is a very powerful platform, guys, and so in our full course, we'll take you through the whole thing in great detail. Now, we did talk a lot about relationships and personal networking. Never a true word is spoken. We spend our lives developing relationships, and they give us a competitive advantage. The more people that you know, the more you've developed great relationships with, they're going to help you in your job search and your career transition success. So for me, this is vitally important to you being successful. You know, generating leads. You know, we hear about salespeople having to generate leads. Well, think of yourself as your own personal salesperson, okay? You have to generate leads to be able to make sure you're getting enough opportunities or vacancies to be able to get a job or to get that next step in your career. So this is where it starts. It really starts by developing your network and leveraging your network to success, okay? So in our full course, we go into some magnificent detail and show you different methodologies like the Talentology ABCE social lead generation methodology that helps you take personal networking to the next level. Michael and I use this to train corporate sales teams to be able to allow them to get more leads. And so it works for both job seekers and for sales professionals, okay? So just in case you don't know the way LinkedIn works, we have our first level connections where we've got a direct connection to someone else. We've got our second level connections where we know someone, but they know someone, we don't know that person as an extension. But there's also third level connections. The whole name of the game is to get more first level connections, but more first level connections that are quality connections. Not necessarily people that are just random, but people that we know, because at the end of the day, then with LinkedIn, we can track them. We know where they go. Someone you worked with 10 years ago, all right, that you had a great relationship with, may now be the CEO at Qantas. You're looking for a job in the aviation industry, in IT, well, that could be an amazing contact to have right now because they're a decision maker and they know you, they trust you, and they may just offer you a job, okay? And that's how easy this can be. Trust me, I've seen it before, okay? And I've helped many people to that level of success. There's lots of common LinkedIn questions. Should I accept LinkedIn invitations from anyone? It's a personal question. I generally don't. If I can see great value in a connection, I say yes. If it's someone that just wants to stalk me and put me onto a lead generation list and I end up getting lots of spam email, then it's probably a no. Should you invite people you don't know? Once again, depends on the situation. Sometimes if you're looking at working for a Qantas or a Telstra, you're looking for senior contacts, as long as the approach is right, maybe it's a yes. How many LinkedIn connections do you need? You need as many quality connections as you can get. I wouldn't put a number on it, okay? If you're looking to have the most number of connections in the LinkedIn world, you'll probably never win that race, I'm afraid. There are people out there with 50,000, 100,000 connections. You don't necessarily need that many, okay? Should you buy the premium version of LinkedIn? It can be an advantage to you. It gives you access to the LinkedIn Learning, which can give you some good free high-level courses as intro courses. It's certainly not as good as full courses through UTS, for example, but certainly it's worth having a look at. The other advantage it gives you as well is that you get to see who's been looking at your profile, which I think is quite valuable. How often should you look at LinkedIn? I look at LinkedIn about 3 times a day. I think it's always good to keep in focus and a pulse of the market. Is it okay to ask my network for help? Absolutely. You should always ask for help of everyone that can help you to success. Should you be worried about bothering people when you ask for help? No. Because if people ask for help, I'm sure they ask you for help all the time and you're saying yes. It's the same in reverse. And should you hide your profile so no one can see that you've clicked on their profile? Personal opinion is no. Let everyone know that you've clicked on their profile because it may stimulate an opportunity for them to contact you and maybe even offer you a job. Who knows?
Trev, I'll just while you're doing those Q&As, there are a couple of extra questions that have come into the Q&A panel.
Oh, okay.
If you want to have a quick look. Yep. So if you can see there's a few there. So the first question that we have, actually 2 from Satya. The first one is around challenges for people over 50s, males having problems tackling, I suppose, rightly or wrongly might be perceived as an age issue for a potential employer. How would you suggest that we get around that? Apart from,
to be perfectly frank, this is a really good question because I get this a lot. Over 50s, obviously, it's quite a vulnerable age for people because there's a whole bunch of different ways that people will perceive you. Too experienced and so on and so forth. But the reality is that if you're using your own network, your personal network, where people know you, they trust you, you've got a higher chance of success than going out to general applications into agencies or through the job boards. In fact, A couple of years ago, I had a client of mine who was 56 years old. He was a program manager, and he posed that very question. I worked with him as a career coach to help him develop his professional network, to help him to develop his pitch, and he had a job within a month. Now, we can't guarantee that level of success for everybody, but what we're able to do is to be able to get his digital brand up, to get him very positive about job search, to give him daily actions to follow, and to be able to talk to his network and leverage the previous, let's say, 20, 30 years of experience that he had to be able to get his next job. And the great news is that he's still working. Okay, he keeps using that that methodology. In fact, even when he got his next job, he then started keeping his nose in the market to make sure that just in case he was disrupted again, then he wouldn't have as much trouble last time. Okay, so it is absolutely possible. In fact, the way I look at it, if you're over 50, it means that you've got amazing experience, and employers should be lucky to take you on. You know, you're going to be stable, reliable, and experienced.
Okay, so thanks for that one. And I totally agree. I think, you know, within my company, I have a number of people over 50s and one or two over 60s, and they're incredibly experienced, well-skilled, have a vast range of just general knowledge that you pick up over all those years. So it's as much about finding the right, you know, choose the boss that you want to work for, rather than just trying to find the actual job. You know, choose the employer, because I think that's important as well. The next one is how do you feel about publishing personal resumes? So do I, you know, just post my resume on LinkedIn, or you know, would you support that approach?
I might throw to Phil on that one, actually. Phil, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Don't have a feeling either way, really. Chances are we'll access your data if Seek aren't selling it to us, if we don't have it on our database, or if LinkedIn isn't selling it to us. You know, the thing is, as Trevor leaves, we've got so much data. So you can put it on there or don't. Sorry to sit on the fence.
So
then, oh, sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
No, go, you go. Sorry.
I was going to move on to the next question if you don't have anything to add on that one.
Let's go.
Okay, so one of them, and I think I answered this one, if you don't pay a monthly subscription to LinkedIn, can prospective employers contact you directly? Yes. So even if they're not your connections, if they have the LinkedIn sort of more premium packages, they get direct contacts to people who aren't within their network. So people who are looking for or going to reach out to you directly, they would have the monthly subscription on their side, which would allow them to connect to you through InMail, they get so many credits per month depending on their subscription. And the final one we have in here is, okay, so what about if you're a seasoned professional and have been working in some context with tech, but don't have the DevOps/architect that can cover some of those skills? So I suppose this question is around how would you approach an opportunity where you don't meet all of the selection criteria, but you meet a number of those things?
Oh, this kind of sits in the middle of all of us, really. I think first and foremost, be honest. Okay. If you're honest about a role, about I suppose the questioning in regards to your experience and skills, at least that way the employer sees your honesty, and I think it's then about your ability to be able to problem solve, come up with a creative solution to the questions that they may ask, and really try and make sure that they can see all the other skills and experience, those softer skills around critical thinking and so on and so forth. The reality is that if that is a mandatory requirement, there's a very good chance that you may not be able to get that job. However, if you perform really well at interview, the good news is that the hiring manager or the employer may then remember you based on your level of honesty and approach, and other things may come up. The amount of times that I've seen secondary roles come out of a primary application or primary vacancy is quite often. So therefore, I think be honest, use your creative and critical thinking around that problem solving element, and just see how you go. Phil, do you want to add anything to that?
You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Cool.
Well
Yeah,
done.
I agree too. I think having hired many people over the years, sometimes employers have their job description is more of a wish list, and sometimes even, you know, they usually categorize in mandatory and nice to have. But even sometimes with the mandatory requirements, if they don't get candidates who meet all of those criteria, they'll still look at, you know, the other candidates who have applied who meet most of the criteria. So even though they're in mandatory, sometimes they can be optional, and as Trevor said, it can lead to other roles.
And also there will be more flexibility if you use the networking that Trev talks about, as opposed to coming through an agency channel. So if you don't fulfill all the criteria, your higher chances to get a role or get in front of a client would be through your own network.
Because if someone knows you and they know that you're capable of, let's say, you know, giving the 120%, learning new skills, what you'll tend to find is that based on your network and that referral, they'll give you a shot. They're more likely to give you a shot as opposed to someone that they don't know, because the reality is if they don't know you, they don't know whether you're going to be able to make the gap. So I certainly agree with what Phil was saying there, which is why using your personal network, sometimes in conjunction with the job boards and with the agencies, is really going to help you. I can't emphasize that enough.
Now, I noticed Steve Crooks has put a couple of would like to answer. Maybe I think he's just handling the questions that have been asked, but if you've got anything you want to add, Steve, by all means, jump in.
No, I was just running admin and marking some of the ones that had been answered. There are a couple that speak a bit more to the university that I've put some text responses in about some of our programs, and I'll talk to those a bit later on when it's my slot.
Cool. So I've got a few more slides on this presentation to go. So we'll just just on this one, things that we cover in our full course around building your network. The first one we call org charting technique, which is about how we build, grow, and supercharge your network, and we're able to expand the number of connections that you have, right? So therefore, the available a number of quality connections grows. Then we show you how to connect with your network. We can connect, get your data out of LinkedIn. It is actually possible to be able to do a usable database, create a database that's usable for analysis. We then show you what we call our ABCE methodology, which is a grading exercise, because what we're looking at doing is we want to make sure that we're contacting your best contacts and connections first. Therefore, we're really focusing on success. And this particular methodology has proven itself to be incredibly successful. And then learning how to conduct social research, prepare for interviews, find potential hiring managers, hidden vacancies to improve your chance of success. It is actually possible. So we take you through exercises that are pretty amazing. That's the stuff that we find, because look, recruiters, at the end of the day, we're also magnificent researchers. And so what we can do is show you how we approach these type of problems, and then you, the job seeker, can try them yourselves through the network. Couple of little concepts. The importance of self-promotion. I'm sure everyone's going, oh my God, self-promotion, selling myself. It can be a really daunting thing, right? Oh, I don't like to talk about myself. The one thing I'm going to say here is, and there's a comment says, sometimes the most educated, experienced, and skilled candidates don't get the job. It's not what you know, it's who you know, all right? Back to networking again. But it's also the interview performance that can get you the job. And Phil's going to talk about that soon. And the importance of promotions, whilst it doesn't come naturally to you, right? It's practice that makes perfect, okay? They say that it takes 100 times of practicing a sales pitch to get it right, to make it convincing and compelling. And I can tell you that is exactly right, okay? So making sure, and your pitch is your elevator pitch, right? So making sure you've got a great elevator pitch, you're focusing on your objective, improving your public speaking skills. If you're not great at public speaking, then that's okay. Tell you a little secret. I was horrible at public speaking, right? I feared it. I would avoid it at all costs, all right? It made me anxious. I had a meltdown in front of my colleagues 10 years ago. It doesn't come naturally, right? I've had to work on it, all right? So sitting here today in front of the PC, can't see any faces. It can be a bit of a daunting task, but I've worked on it. I give it a go, and I've actually become pretty good at it. You can do the same, okay? If I can do it, you can do it. So therefore, making sure and really getting this right is going to help everything for you to be able to approach people, improve your confidence, your interview ability, your ability to small talk, rapport build, the whole thing. All right. But before anything, plan, relax, take a big deep breath, and practice. They're some of the big things that you need to do, but don't be afraid to get yourself out of your comfort zone into the learning zone. It's really, really important on this, okay? Just as important as personal networking. Small talk and rapport building is very important. Now, in your non-professional, your personal life, I'm sure you're great at having a chat around the barbie to your mates. It's exactly the same. The only difference being we're putting a bit more pressure on you because now all of a sudden it's about a job. It's about life and death. It's about success and failure. Not really. But if you're great at creating small talk, that's going to help you to be able to warm up a hiring manager who's interviewing you to make sure that you're the person that they're going to choose. A lot of the times, and Phil will cover this in his interview section, it's the first 5 minutes of the interview that really make the difference. I've seen people that have won it and lost it in the first 5 minutes based on their ability to build rapport. Now, sometimes you can't build rapport because you and the interviewer may just not be the similar people. And that's okay as well, because we can't be good with everybody, but give it your best shot, okay? And once again, in our full course, we cover a lot on self-promotion and confidence and public speaking and a whole bunch of different things, right? Because this is so important. You know, if you're interested, you know, Steve will talk about the full course at the end, but this is the type of stuff that we do cover to build your confidence so you give it your best shot. We want to see, bring out the best you. And social promotion, similar to obviously, you know, other ways of promoting yourself, is a great way to create attention. You know, sharing content, you know, we've even helped people become thought leaders in the industry because through social promotion, you're going to attract attention, and attracting positive professional attention in you is hopefully going to get you that next job opportunity and hopefully get you the next job career step, okay? Social promotion gives people on the outside, like recruiters and hiring managers in your network, an opportunity to know more about you, to hear more about your story, but an expanded version rather than just your LinkedIn profile, okay? It talks to the things that you're passionate about, okay? And that can sometimes be the difference. And we cover a lot on this in our full course as well. You know, how to create the content, share the content, like the content, pre-schedule the delivery of content. A lot of, there's a couple of technical elements there as well, but it's a really cool thing to learn. And this is my second last slide, so we're not far away. Thank God, I'm sure everyone's taking a sigh of relief. Some simple discipline hacks for you all, okay? On the last day of every month, update your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Why would you do that? Do you know the amount of people that say to me, oh my God, I haven't done my resume in 5 years, where do I start? That's to avoid that. If you have to think back 5 years and think, what the hell was I doing 5 years ago? All the achievements, all the things you did, it's a really tough exercise. But if you set a calendar invitation for yourself once a month on the last day and you get it done, it'll take you about half an hour, okay? Really, really simple stuff. When you're networking, every week call 5 of your what we call A-list contacts, your best contacts, just to say hello. Why would you do that? Because it keeps you in practice, whether you've got a job or not. Just ring people up and have a conversation. It's going to keep you in practice. Every couple of months, go for an interview. Even if you've got a job, go for an interview. Why would you do that? Because if all of a sudden you haven't interviewed for 10 years, it's going to be probably tough for you, right? If you're always practicing, it's going to be easier for you, all right? Usain Bolt does not get out of bed without, you know, practicing every day and run 100 meters in 10 flat, okay? He practices every day, okay? He doesn't just sit there for 2 months and get out of bed and run it. Once a month, go to a meetup group or an industry event. Challenge yourself to personally network. Get yourself out there. Hold out your hand. Well, not maybe hold out your elbow and say, how you going? Good to meet you. Practice your elevator speech. Get into small talk and rapport building. Once a day, share an article on LinkedIn that you like. And look at LinkedIn every day and congratulate people for their birthdays and achievements. If it's only that you do, at least you're going to connect yourself with success. If you want more information about talentCRU or talentology, be my guest. Have a look at our LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profile. Have a look at our website and look at our LinkedIn profile as well. And if you're interested to know more about side hustles or you're interested to know about career coaching, have a look at talentology. Obviously, you know, we're working in conjunction with UTS and ITIC and Paxus here for the full course, which Steve will give us some details about at the end. But we're really happy to help. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my my learned colleague, Phil Wilkinson. All right, so Phil's going to talk to you about resumes and interviews. Phil has been in the industry for more than 20 years. Fun fact, Phil started at Paxus in 1997, 3 months before me. although I've had a 10-year break from Paxus and talentCRU, and he's still been there, I think 23 years, Phil. And he's one of Australia's leading and most trusted IT recruitment executives. I can honestly say that because I've heard feedback on Phil. He's a very honest man. He tells it how it is. And the one thing that Phil does, he represents his candidates with great passion and desire to be able to get them a good job. So, Phil, I will be your slide person. So take it away.
Thank you, Trev. It was 23 years ago we sat next to the photocopier.
Hey, what's a photocopier? What's a photocopier?
Look, I just made a couple of quick notes on your presentation. On your superpowers slide, that's really good. So for people who are struggling, it's resilience. If you get a knockback, it's not a personal thing that we do to people. So don't take anything personally. I realise I also need to update my own LinkedIn profile. But that's good because I'm not looking for a job, right? So that's why. Now, just to give people a bit of perspective, Paxus has been around for a long time. Last year, we had around 6,000 roles, jobs come to us. We filled around 1,500 of those. So we work nationally. We work across a lot of the big blue chip organisations, the telcos, the banks, a lot of state and federal gov. We hire across permanent career roles. We do a lot of work in the contract space. Typical people we would hire would include business analysts, architects, engineers, change people, process people. And whilst the product has stayed the same over those 23 years, the channels have really changed for people to find work. You know, it's still the same product, you're still the same person. And I just wanted to give some insights as to how to create a good resume and also some stats from talking to my colleagues, from talking to a number of internal agency guys that I know very well. We're typically working around 20 to 30 to 40 jobs a month. That's a lot of volume. And with that volume, we only really look at a resume for 10 to 15 seconds. So bear in mind, when you're constructing a resume, it needs to look good. It needs to be concise because you're only really going to get 10 to 15 seconds of human eye contact on that document. The purpose of the resume is to get to that interview. So always keep that in mind. The resume is your document. It's you're selling yourself. And so when you come to construct a resume, there's a few simple do's and don'ts. Put on your contact details, mobile, email. I'd also put on the suburb that you live in. With an exec summary that some people will put in, if you're going to use one, just keep it to say 2 to 3 lines, because everyone says they're great at everything. We only really need something that sums you up in 2 or 3 lines. With job titles, where you can, try and standardize them. So what I mean by that is, because of the high volumes, because of the pressure that's on recruiters, internal and agency, often we really focus on putting a square peg into a square hole, which can be detrimental to people who don't always fit in. So if you're, let's say you're a business advisor, that's your official role title, but you spend your days workshopping, gathering requirements, you could probably call yourself business advisor / business analyst. So try and make the job title easily recognizable. Keywords, include a number of keywords. If you're a dev person, if you work in an agile environment, put it in there. Don't always assume that people will know that just because you're running a Scrum means that you work in an agile environment. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but your resume might be looked at by someone who's fresh out of college, might be looked at by a machine. So put in certain keywords. Now, the core responsibilities, the reason why it's got a capital C and R, this is the key part to your resume. We really need 7 to 8 bullet points about your core responsibilities. So for instance, if you're a project manager, it might be managing financials, it might be project shaping. If you're a solution architect, it might be a high-level roadmap, it might be TOGAF. Just ensure that you in your employment section, you have 7 to 8 bullet points that are your core responsibilities. And if you struggle in terms of, well, gee, what the heck are they? The best point is always go to your job spec. So if you can find your current job spec, go on the intranet, or if you're out of work, just go on Seek. Have a look at the number of jobs adverts there, because chances are a number of the recruiters just copy and paste the bloody job spec anyway that they're working on, and then you can actually highlight, oh gee, yeah, I've done the workshops, I'll put workshops in. I've done use cases, I'll put that in too. And underneath the core responsibilities, this is where we like the projects or achievements, and this needs tangible figures. So it could be I worked in a team of 5. It was a 2 mil piece of work. So think of the core responsibilities as that's your core, but the projects give context. So if I'm looking to hire someone who's say for a bank who's a BA, I need to know that this person, the candidate we're working with, can fit into such a large, complex organization. A few brief don'ts. Don't include, I don't think you need to include a personal address anymore. I think it's relevant to put the suburb, but you don't really need a personal address. And photos, don't include them. As Trev says, leave those and keep them professional on the LinkedIn profile. Because if we get a resume and we like the look of it, chances are we're going to cross-reference against LinkedIn anyway, just making sure the dates match up, making sure that you look normal, that you're not a freak. Making your resume user-friendly is very important, because it's not only humans that look at your resume, it's machines. So try and minimize, in fact, don't use tables or graphics. Best not to use columns down the left-hand side, because they take a lot of space that might not be used. For cover letters, people ask about cover letters. I rarely read them. In fact, I never read them. So some roles will require a cover letter, probably more FedGov or StateGov. If they ask for one, certainly give one. But otherwise, use all the time that you're going to spend writing your cover letter, constructing a really strong, succinct resume. Don't leave out career gaps. If you've been out of work for a year, if you were made redundant in 2015 and then you picked up work in 2016, just put it in. Because look, as Trevor alluded to, redundancy is very common. And it's a way that we pick up some really good people who are available straight away, and we can just plug them into an employer. But it's really good to know what was the reason. So it might be 2 years stay-at-home dad. Wonderful, just put it in, because otherwise we'll tend to go, well, what's this person doing? We are by default a nosy bunch of people in recruitment, by the way. I try and keep your resume to 4 to 5 pages as well. So remember that 10 to 15 seconds. Most of that 10 to 15 seconds will be on the first page. We don't really need to go into detail as to what you did 20 years ago. So really focus on the last 2 or 3 jobs. Next page, young Trev. So as an example, because I know it can be hard if I'm talking. So look at this as a visual. So this is something that I created. There's so many good people out there who are really crap at writing resumes. So when I interview them and I find some people who I really like, and I think you're the perfect candidate, I'll spend time coaching them in terms of how to present their experience. So clearly you don't put in stuff you haven't done, right? You've got to be honest. But as you present your resume, this is almost the perfect section that we look for. It highlights the senior business analyst underneath it. A couple of lines gives the context there. This is a BA. Sorry, I default to BAs because I hire so many of them. And underneath the responsibilities, they're the core responsibilities for a BA. So that's what we really like to see. Now, clearly, you'd probably put a few more words around each bullet point, but that gives you an idea of what we're really looking for. Then underneath that, the projects. So we need to know what are your core skills, but then we need to know how do you apply them? Where do you fit in? So if we're looking to hire a BA to work in a bank, we're probably not going to be working or forwarding a resume of a BA who's worked in a team of one. You know, we need to know what was the team environment, how big was the project, how complex was it, did it include vendor staff, in-house staff? So it's really key to show we've got your responsibilities, but in the projects and achievements, this is where you applied your trade. And this will be part of the presentation that the guys will keep online for you. So please feel free just to have a look at that. Next page, young Trev. Now, in interviews, so when I'm working with candidates, I always say interviews are like exams, and it's all about preparation, right? So prep, and then prep again. So going back to the core skills from the resume. So if you're a project manager, for instance, have 2 examples based on each core skill. One might be vendor management. How have you worked? So you can sit yourself down, write a number of questions on a bit of paper, and just have them in your at hand when you're answering. If you're a PM, how did you manage with a vendor who was hard to work with? How did you bring the vendor back to the fold? If you're a business analyst, how did you facilitate a workshop with a difficult user? So for each core skill, try and think of 2 examples so that when you're asked a question, you can then use the most appropriate content to answer that question directly. But make sure you answer the question. Don't just waffle, you know? And that comes back to 2-minute answers. So 2 is the key thing. So any answer, if you're in an interview, any answer longer than 2 minutes will bore the pants off them. Keep your answers succinct. Talk about the situation, the task, the real behavioral interview method. Well, the vendor was pretty crap. This is what I did, and this was the result. So keep it concise. Remember, in an interview, if they want to find out more, they will ask you. People value concise communication these days. Just bear that in mind, okay? Have 2 questions ready to ask at the end of the interview. So this is quite key because I interview a lot of candidates, and the candidates that I really enjoy working with are the ones who will ask me questions. So if you're in an interview, physical or Zoom, the people who you're sitting with are taking an hour out of their busy day. So show a bit of interest, a bit of respect, and ask them some questions. It shows that you're really keen to learn. I've interviewed people before. At the end, I'll say, do you have any questions? They'll say no. In my head, I'm thinking, well, why the hell did you come then? So show that you're interested. And finally, in terms of interviews, clearly this year it's been very different. Everything's via Zoom, WebEx. It can take a bit of getting used to, but you use it to your advantage. So there are certain tricks you can use, right? So if you've got 3 or 4 people who are interviewing you, chances are you'll know their names before it starts, you'll know their job titles. No one can see behind the screens, right? So get a few Post-it notes up there. Tom's in marketing. Sharon's in finance, so have those around your laptop. You might even have a few questions that you wanted to ask. And finally, in a Zoom interview, make sure that you're comfortable, you're sitting comfortable, that the laptop is at eye contact, so you're not always looking. If you've got a double chin, you're worrying about it. You want to feel confident, and you want to kind of test the technical kit before you start. So that was quite a quick zoom through the resume and interviews. So thank you, Trev.
And if you would like more information on Paxus, have a look at the Paxus website, www.paxus.com.au. Alternately, If you want to know more about the presenters today for the first two presentations, and also with Steve's presentation, the two Steves, have a look at us on LinkedIn and connect with us if you'd like as well.
Thank you.
All right, I think we are now ready for Stephen Elbourn.
Yeah, we might just have a couple of questions which Phil may be able to answer, just that came through during Phil's presentation, and generally as a group as well. So one of the questions is around what do we think around applying for lower level jobs to get a foot in the door within the organisation. So what's the recruiter's opinion of this? So if you're effectively overqualified, I suppose, but just desperate or keen to get any job.
Yeah. So if you are a project manager and you're applying for a project coordinator role, we would generally pass over that candidate. And that our purpose is to make a hire, right? So that's not based on our judgment. That's based on clients who will always tell us, well, if we hired a PM to do a project coordinator role, he or she is bound to leave later as soon as the PM role comes through. So that will revert back to using your own network and contacts. Remember, when you come through the channel that is internal recruitment or agency recruitment, we are quite blinkered sometimes.
Yeah, and I think also, Phil, and that's a good point, as an employer, it's quite an arduous task to go through the recruitment process. So if you're looking at a candidate who has a skill set and is at that level versus a candidate who's overqualified and, as you said, would likely go for the first role that comes up, you know, as soon as it's available within your company or elsewhere, as a decision maker in recruitment process, you'd normally lean towards the people who are just qualified for the job, because generally, and it doesn't mean that the person who seems to have just the right level of qualifications for the job isn't going to leave within 3 months, but it seems more likely from a business owner's or business manager's perspective that someone who's overqualified would likely move on and therefore create more challenges. So that's generally, whilst it's not, I wouldn't say don't apply for jobs that you're overqualified for. It's likely that as part of the normal shortlisting process, people who are overqualified may be excluded from the interview process. But thank you very much, Phil and Trevor. That was great job from both of you.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so now it's my time in the hot seat, in the spotlight. So my job today is to present a view on the career transition paths that you can move towards as part of your change and move across into a new area or a new team. So just checking, can everyone see my screen? IT career transition, career options and technology stacks.
Yeah, I can see it. It's fine.
Good. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, so my part is just to go through the different, what we see as the 4 main areas that are in demand in IT right now and moving to the future. And then how you can, what sort of roles they involved and what sort of study or additional skills that you might need for those careers. Now, just a little bit about myself. My name is Steve Elbourn and I'm the Managing Director of ITIC, and ITIC is partnering or collaborating with University of Technology Sydney and Paxus and talentCRU on this initiative. But myself, my background is in telco. I had 23 years working at Telstra, and I actually experienced what Trevor mentioned, which is around having multiple jobs over a period of time. When my parents, were married and starting in work, they taught me that, you had a job and it was career for life. My experience, and it was a good one, I'm not, all the way along, but I actually worked for Telstra on 3 different occasions, 2 of which I was part of a group of people who were volunteers to be made redundant. So I've actually had and lived firsthand that redundancy experience. In my case, it was a career transition choice that I did before rather after, and I moved on to the next thing. And basically what happened was telco industry is quite small, and eventually the opportunity came back around and I ended up going back on a couple of occasions. So as I said, several times in Telstra, 23 years in total. I've been the managing director of ITIC for the last 3 years. ITIC was established in 2001. I've had the pleasure of running ITIC for the last few years, and also co-founder of several tech companies. So one of the big things that I've been involved in over the last 5 years in particular is software development, which is, as a result, led me to establish ITI Yarn Lab, but also now moving into broader IT services like AI, data science and cybersecurity. And I'm pleased to be a part of a majority-owned Indigenous company called Uriga, which is also creating IT career opportunities for Indigenous Australians. I'm industry advisory board member for the Department of Computing at Macquarie and also University of New South Wales. And as you can see, I'm a short course lecturer at University of Technology Sydney, which is the career transition course that we're doing now. And also industry stream for education at the Mac Uni AIP Research Centre. I have my LinkedIn profile there, so I enjoy connecting with people and giving feedback, providing any input that I can. If you have questions, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It will be my pleasure to connect with you. So ITIC, it was established in 2001 to build career pathways for career transitioners, which is the audience that we have today, so IT graduates. We have a training and certification work integrated learning centre where we run our programs from. And in this instance, we're collaborating with UTS on short courses for career transition, which is this one, but we also have a number of others, including cyber for executives, entrepreneurship, and we're looking forward to potentially launching a data science fundamentals course next year. In ITIC, we have software development, cyber, data science, and IT help desk, and we're, from a professional perspective, IT consulting services and support. One of the things that I experienced firsthand as a career transitioner is around comfort zones and how they affect us. So what happens is when you're in your current environment, current role, everyone does it. It's human nature. We move into our comfort zone, and some people just are quite happy to stay there and work within that comfort zone. But what usually happens over time is if you don't initiate a lifetime of learning approach, particularly in IT, you get thrown out of your comfort zone, and that usually happens by way of redundancy or something changes in the industry and your skill set becomes less relevant. So you may be in the same job having to learn a new skill, or you might be moving into a completely different career because the one that you've had for a number of years is no longer available to you. So the first thing that happens when we move out of our comfort zone, this is about personal growth. And everyone's probably experienced this over their lifetimes, I would imagine. But, you come out of your comfort zone, move into the fears as the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to work out. We feel uncomfortable. We've got a lack of self-confidence. And then that triggers us to move into a learning zone. This is where we dig our heels in and we say, okay, I'm going to make a change here for the better. I'm going to, work this out. And that's when you knuckle down and start to get things moving. And then we move into the growth zone, which is where we actually improve our skill sets and move on to other, purpose and different things within life. So it's really important to understand that most people like to stay within their comfort zones, and at some point in your life, either way, whether it's personal relationships or career or health, you're going to be thrown out of that comfort zone, and you need to be able to deal with it. For me, starting in the industry back in the early 90s, this was the type of technology that I was exposed to initially. All analog, electromechanical technology. We still, rotary dial telephones for those of us who are old enough to remember those. And by the time I left Telstra 5 years ago, this was the state of play. So it was data centers, racks, equipment, everything was quiet and air conditioning and nice to work on. There was no oil or grease associated with anything. And it's all video and as we can see with COVID, completely moved outside of on-premise environments and now into the cloud. So the one thing that I've learned over the last 23 years is that technology never stays still and always changes quickly, and you need to keep up with it over time, otherwise you get left behind. So hence, as you know, people always say, never stop learning. You know, that can be doing things like short courses or, you know, joining industry groups. So working, say, cybersecurity, joining, you know, the Australian Information Security Association, if you're in the IT industry, the Australian Computer Society, going to all of their sort of events and just keeping up with the latest technologies. And then you can do specific learning like certifications and short courses and, you know, maybe even a postgraduate degree or something like that. But never stop learning. It's really, really important. And then you need to also decide what do you want to achieve for yourself and your family. What's your vision? You need to have a vision, because without a vision, you can't set goals, and without goals, you can't, you know, move forward. So the first thing is you need to decide within your own mind where it is you'd like to go. Now, what's driving a lot of the change at the moment is what we call Industry 4.0, and Trevor mentioned it as Future of Work, or FOW. Now, you can see first industrial revolution came about in the 18th century as part of the steam engine, which modernized the way that people move things around and allowed distances to be shortened through that technology. The second industrial revolution was based on electricity, third being recently with the computer and the internet and the evolution of that. But the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, is being driven by automation through robotics, through AI machine learning, through IoT, through big data. And basically, this will be what changes both the way that we work, the sort of jobs that we can work in, and just in general, the way that we live. You know, autonomous cars are coming. All of the things that we do in a normal day are moving remotely. The common office environment, as Trevor mentioned before, the gig economy, it's all coming. So we need to be able to, as part of our strategy for, you know, staying relevant, not just embrace a lifetime of learning, but also be really flexible and willing to change the way that we do things as well. Some of the things that we do in ITIC as part of our relationships with the university is actually to run work integrated learning programs, and that helps people in a career transition or graduating from uni to get that practical experience and have industry experience, bit of training, maybe some certification to help them along that journey. So what I'd like to go through is just the number of key areas that we sort of see as the in-demand roles of where you can go if you're in a situation where you've got some IT experience or IT background and you're looking for the next thing that you're going to move towards. Cybersecurity in particular is the biggest one these days, with, you know, governments coming out and saying cybersecurity needs to be managed from a local sovereignty perspective, and also with the huge shortfall currently of cybersecurity experts and engineers and practitioners that we're developing through the educational institutions who are actually choosing a career in cyber. It's been identified that there's not enough people taking up those careers to satisfy the demand. And globally, cybersecurity is, there's about 2 million people globally, less than what we actually need. Data science is another big one that's driving the future of work. Everything's going to be about data analytics, big data, all of the data that's generated by autonomous or automation and IoT devices. Data science is going to be a huge part of that, and obviously software development, which has always been around for a long time, but it's particularly what we've found now is a lot of the roles that you need to do, you need to have some sort of programming experience, whether it be DevOps or whether it be in data science or whether it be software development. You actually need to have some sort of software development experience. So what we're suggesting is that you choose for your IT transition, choose an in-demand IT career. And what that will mean is that you have the best chance when you've completed that transition to actually, land an opportunity. If you're in an area that's shrinking and the skills are in less demand, then obviously supply and demand dictates that you're not going to find it that easy to find a job if you're just entering in the market. But if you do choose a career in a high demand area where there's a skill shortage and governments are pushing money to try and address that, then what you'll find is that you'll land in a position where you can easily transition into that new career once you've upskilled. So when we look at software, so some of the things that you need to learn in software. Now, software can be DevOps, software can be part of a data science career, or software can be an actual full stack software developer. So if you're looking at software development as a career, you have your front end, you have your protocols and databases, and then you have your back end and your platform. So some of the things that are popular that you'd need to be looking at as far as front end would be JavaScript or React.js, JSON, jQuery. I mean, they're all very popular in programming speak. Then we have our databases. So you need to have SQL or NoSQL database. So SQL is obviously one of the main ones that are used, but MongoDB is one of the options for NoSQL. And then in the back end, Python node. So Python's very popular. Python's very popular in this skill set. So these are some of the things that we'd recommend that you learn as skills to move forward in a software career. And if you can start self-learning or do short courses or do those incorporated into some sort of training or learning or formal degree or diploma course, then I'd recommend that. Some of the software development roles that you can do: software architect, developer, business analyst, and test engineer. So all of these roles are key if you want to work in software. So as a test engineer, you could do the ITIC certification, which is for certified testing, software testing. With software testing, when you're working with the software development team, you're mapping the requirements back to the original scope and making sure that functional and non-functional requirements are all addressed. And then any changes that are done to that, you're also making sure and testing, validating those changes are completed and done correctly before any updates are pushed out into production. Business analyst, so that's the person who goes to the business and actually defines what requirements are. Developer is the builder of the code, and the software architect is the person who leads that project. So, if you start on a software career, you can either focus on within software, business analyst or test engineer, which are less hands-on software development skills, or if you've got some coding experience, developer or software architect would be the roles that you should be looking at. Things to learn in cloud. I mean, we all know about AWS and Azure. Google Cloud is starting to come to the forefront, but also some of the infrastructure that sits within the cloud environments like Cisco and VMware. Those are the sort of things that you would be looking at as far as certifications go. And then some of the technology roles. Now this is a basically my career path, where it was support and implementation, then as a designer, so working on projects, then as an architect, leading specific projects, and then as a technology lead, being the tech lead for a particular customer of Telstra's, which was one of the largest government organisations in Australia. So there's a direct career path through technology roles, and most of the people who are on this presentation, if you work in the tech industry, you've probably started at or left one of these roles as part of your reason for looking at career transition. So those roles are still there, and they will always be there as far as technology goes, whether it's cloud or customer infrastructure. Then the new way of thinking is around, when we move to cloud, we've created this DevOps type environment. And this is where you still need software developers and testers, but you need automation experts, code release managers, and DevOps evangelists. So this is still the progression through the ranks from junior to senior roles, but it's a different way of doing things when we're talking about DevOps as opposed to traditional software development. DevOps is all about automation and using technology so that, you know, people can click a button and things happen, and also how we can manage our infrastructure automatically as opposed to statically, as has been done in the past. So data science, why choose a career in data science? Now, data science is something that I'm quite passionate about, that I have a strong interest in, and that I'm participating with universities in research in particular to enhance and provide, you know, new ways of doing teaching and learning in the education space. But basically, when you talk about data science, you know, data is the 21st century's oil. You know, when you look at the most valuable companies in days gone by, they were all of the oil companies. Now you look at the most valuable companies, it's all the tech companies, and even the non-traditional tech companies like Tesla. It's all technology based. So you have your ABC or Google, you have your, you know, Facebook, you have your Amazon, you have your also Google. So all of those tech companies, they're the most valuable businesses in the world, and therefore that's why they're all tech, and that's why we should, you know, consider a career in data science. Now, a few quotes that we have. Any organisation has 80% of its data locked up as unstructured or dark data, making it difficult to analyse and gain insights. So data science, structured data is easy. It's, you know, text-based, it's easy to interpret. Unstructured data is things like images and non-traditional images and video and all of those sort of things, non-traditional data that we need to interpret and analyse. So data science is a field that's really interesting in that how can we unlock the potential of unstructured data, and that's what you'll do as a data scientist. Now we can see also the amount of value sitting in that dark data is tremendous. Data is the new gold, as I mentioned, and our clients are struggling with how to mine it. So there's going to be a huge opportunity ongoing with the, you know, future of work and Industry 4.0 to move into that. Some things to learn in data science, and a lot of these overlap with the software developer side. So Python, machine learning algorithms, deep learning, SQL programming, and also importantly, analytics tools like Tableau and Power BI, really important. Data analyst. So data analyst is actually the person that collects and interprets the data so that businesses can make decisions. And a data engineer is the person responsible for actually picking up and collecting the data. So putting the infrastructure in place to actually build the data sets that the data analysts use to help the business make decisions. Okay, so cybersecurity. So this is a big one, and you know, given the time limitations, I could have gone through the whole end-to-end work integrated learning program, but because I think cyber is really an important one and an important topic at the moment, I'll just go through and show you what we do specifically in cyber around career training and career transition. So you can see here, just another quote: the demand for cybersecurity professionals is insatiable at the moment, and this is not just an Australian problem, it's a global problem. And that's from the head of cybersecurity at the Australian Signals Directorate. Government of Australia investing a significant amount of money in developing cyber skills. Globally, as I said, there's a shortfall at this point in time of around 2 million cyber professionals. So it's really a career that, if you're looking at building or doing additional training or certifications, really a career that we need to focus on. One thing that we look at is a NICE framework. So that was developed in collaboration for, it's a framework companies can use to determine what roles they have and what the suitability is for those roles. But it's also a framework for educational institutions to use to know what to train people in. So if you'd like more information on the framework, I can send the link for the AustCyber NICE dashboard, and that will actually allow you to select the job roles and understand what training that you need to be able to move into those areas. So just to think about from a certification perspective, which is you know, one of the options: certification, short courses, micro learning, or diplomas. Some of the areas of cybersecurity where you can certifications, cyber incident response manager. So this is all under the NICE framework. This is a defined role within the NICE framework, and these are the things that you can specifically go after as a career. If you've got a strong background in IT and IT networking, these are the sort of things that you should look at from the career transition perspective to move into that next role. So cyber incident response manager, these are some of the roles that you do as part of that under the NICE framework. Then we have cybersecurity ops manager. Once again, some of the interesting things that you can do, that would be a cyber instructor or information system security manager. Then we move to the next one. Disaster response and recovery manager. So this is a sort of more of a hands-on role, but setting cyber policy and strategy, providing being a knowledge manager, control assessor. So disaster response and recovery manager, once again, that's another area that you can move into. And then network forensic analysis manager. This is probably the most hands-on one, where you develop your skill sets in those particular areas to go and have a look at a network after it's been hacked and do investigation both through logs and through different forensic techniques to do those things. So there's some interesting careers, particularly in cyber. As I said, with this timeline that we have for this presentation, just covering the cyber ones, but also we have other areas where either software or data science that we can provide training and help for you to transition in your career in those areas. One of the things with cyber that we've got, which is really interesting, is a gamified cyber training platform. So it's what they call a cyber range. So you can select the mission, form teams, and go in and train on cyber battles. And what this does is it actually builds virtual machines, stands them up in the background and runs those for you to compete either as a blue team or a red team in offensive or defensive mode. To do your training on real infrastructure. It's also really good for recruitment companies to use to challenge potential employees or recruits that they're looking forward to put forward to the employers in their cyber skills. So it's quite an interesting platform. So this is where we select our missions. These are the sort of missions that we can do, and you get some digital certificates as part of that once you pass those. So we've got recruit, cyber defense infrastructure specialist, cyber defense analyst, system security analyst, and team lead. So once you've stepped through those and you can do all of those tasks in real time effectively, then you're digitally qualified for those sort of roles. And this is a new approach that we've taken to hands-on skills training for cybersecurity. And then finally, in the battle school, we have the media centre. So this is where we do we provide all of our resources for you. So for anyone who's interested, we can share more information on cyber or data science or software development, work integrated learning that we do. And also how that relates and fits into the next stages, which is moving towards, micro credentials and full diploma courses that we can do in parallel with UTS. So if you want to connect with ITIC or follow us, that's all our socials. So feel free to stick your phone up towards the screen at this point and get to LinkedIn or Facebook. At this point, that's about the end of my presentation. We have 5 minutes, so I have left Steve Crooks with some time to go through and give a summary and close. So I really appreciate everyone for their attendance today, and thank you for joining us. It's great to see so many people attend and have an opportunity to help you in your career transition. I'm just looking through just quickly on the questions. I think we've covered a lot of those. So what I might do at this point is just, in the interest of time, I'll hand over to Steve now just to give a summary on the UTS side and to close the call. I think what we'll do is post or send out a summarized version or short version of the recording so that you can review and just get the key points for that. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Michael. And thanks, Phil. Really appreciate all of you attending. Thank you to all the attendees. You've been great. And thanks for all the questions. And now I'll hand over to Steve. And thank you also, Steve, for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure. I think we have a couple of minutes left, so I can walk you through a bit of information from the university side, and obviously you'll get this follow-up information in the comms as well. So here we go. Just to double check, you can see my UTS cover slide, right?
Yep.
Alrighty, here's the 5-minute version. So UTS, most of you on the call have probably heard of us, leading young university in Australia, University of Technology, right in the heart of Sydney, which is funny because it was always a really big selling point for our short courses pre-COVID, and all of a sudden, having these rooms where you're around academics and students from all over the world and you can access easily via public transport and everything else became a bit less of a selling factor, but we've adapted and we're actually really excited to welcome people back on campus now. This has been an interesting year of transition for all of us as individuals, I think, and organizations. And obviously, I think you all know about the challenges that our sector is facing. We won't pretend it's not difficult. But in a way, a lot of what we're doing as a university are things that we plan to do already. We've always been focused on this 2027 strategy. There's loads more information on this on the website if you're interested, where we really want to transition to lifetime learning. I look after professional education in engineering and IT at UTS. My whole unit, my role, my portfolio was brand new when I joined 2 years ago. And it's a big part of growing towards, I don't really like future of work because it's been the future for 5 years already, and present of work doesn't sound as sexy, but this idea that everything is just happening so much more quickly, so much more agile, we need to upskill, reskill, remain on the ball constantly and have a personalized learning experience where possible. So I've always been working on courses in this space, and COVID and the economic impact has just given us a chance to really accelerate a lot of what we're doing here and accelerate some of the partnerships we have with great people like the guys you've seen on the call today. This is more of a corporate training slide, but we've always been focused on future-proofing individuals, future-proofing teams, future-proofing organizations, creating and building this culture of lifelong learning. What we do as a university in undergrad and postgrad study is great. I have really smart colleagues who work very dedicated in that space. Bachelor's and master's degrees aren't going to go anywhere. They're always going to be valuable, but they're not enough. In and of themselves. You'll always need to remain current and look at supporting yourself for these career changes, whether they are being forced on you by external circumstances or you're being proactive and looking to build a new and exciting role for yourself. We have a whole raft of stuff on our websites. I'll send you the links shortly after this presentation. We run courses in AI and ML, we run courses in data, we run courses in transformative technology. We do have a lot of courses in more kind of traditional, if you like, areas of engineering as well. If you want to get into telecommunications, civil and environmental engineering, sustainability, lots of different offerings in those spaces. Some of the things that we've seen this year has really been interesting in the professional learning space. So obviously everyone has gotten very good and very accepted, I think, at working from home. It might have taken 5 or 10 years for Australia to catch up in those regards, but I think it's going to be here to stay. And even as we transition back, you're probably going to see a hybrid approach where people are doing some work from home and some work from, large team-based office environments, let's say. This has been interesting for scheduling courses because previously, we'd look at running training in block mode on campus, and all of a sudden, people don't need to commute anymore. People can do a lot more kind of self-study, asynchronous study and interaction with their cohort of peer learners and with our tutors as well. Online learning has been great for some people. Virtual classrooms offer things that you can't do in the physical classroom. So again, in the same way that we're all going to be working, I think, both from home and on site in the future, we're going to continue learning from home, learning on the go, but also having on campus or in classroom activities for where they work best. We've got more tools, we've got a broader skill set, and we can start making smart choices based on those. But some things that haven't changed are a lot of those skill gaps that the guys have spoken about and some of those career paths that Steve mentioned. They were important before this year, they remain important. There is a huge shortage of skilled, qualified professionals in cyber, data, and STEM more broadly. Getting people who are in roles more digitally savvy and data competent remains important. Building those skills if you're looking for a new career in those roles remains important. And look, you as an individual or an organization who's paying for your training are overwhelmed by choice right now. There's so much stuff out there. Some of it's free, lots of it's cheap, some of it's in person, some of it's online. Do you go to a uni? Do you go to a private training provider? Do you just, go to Dr. Google and look at learning there? I mean, all of those answers can be relevant for different people. The key thing is, choosing a provider that you trust, choosing a provider that's going to do a good job and really deliver on that quality. We've made a conscious effort not to go into the kind of massively online space. There is so much good content out there. If what you want is kind of self-paced access to slides and videos and content and so on, there's no need for us to be providing more in that space. What we really look at focus on providing is kind of guidance and facilitation and that human touch. And that's true, I think, of this course that we're running with ITIC and the team as well. We really see needs for kind of broader, more industry or tool agnostic best practice focused learning now. I think if you look 5 years ago, telcos only wanted very telco specific training, government only wanted very government specific training, et cetera, et cetera. That made it really slow and unwieldy and expensive for us to build and run, and there was relatively little reuse. People care a lot more about transferable skills now. So we really look at providing, training programs that focus on industry agnostic case studies across a whole broad range of domains, because look, you're coming to this career transition with skills and domain knowledge from the industry you've been working in already. We don't need to teach you how to suck eggs in that regard. We'll just give you the digital skills that help you apply that in a different context. And then you have a really interesting choice. You know, do you want to go for a micro-credential, something that's a bit more academic, combination of self-paced learning and some live facilitated sessions, and the ability to take an assignment at the end of that as a standalone qualification? You know, you do this part-time for 2 months, you've learned something, you can do something that you didn't have previously. It stands alone as a course, but you could also use it for recognition of prior learning into a master's or a grad cert or a grad dip in the future. Or do you prefer a really intensive, highly customized, highly bespoke short course? Micro-credentials are super exciting. We're seeing a lot of traction around those this year, but I think there'll always be a place for kind of non-award, more flexible short courses where the focus really is on the presentation and the engagement, and we don't need to worry so much about the assignments at the end. And we continue to offer these courses in collaboration. As I said, there's lots of courses you can take directly on our site. With our own lecturers and professors and academics, but increasingly we're looking at working with industry bodies and industry providers. We're in courses with the UN, we're in courses with industry bodies in loads of different sectors, whether you're looking at engineering or data or other areas, and we're really pleased to be offering courses like this taster you've had today on IT career transition. We will be in touch shortly after this session with some dates where we're looking to run the 1-day or even 2-day extended versions of this into the new year. I know that was a short and relatively quick presentation. Everything I've just covered is kind of there online on our websites with a whole lot more as well. So do go to UTS Open. That's where you can see courses across the whole university, not just my faculty, or reach out and email my team there or me directly. I'm always happy to chat, share information on the courses that we've got and any specific feedback you've got on some of the things we've discussed in the call today. But I'm aware that we are now a little bit over time, and I know that there has been a lot that we've gone through and covered there. Hopefully it's been informative for you. I know there's a few questions that are still up there in the question log. I think perhaps, Steve, the best response is we could log some of those and maybe send an email summary through to people afterwards as well.
Yeah, no problem. Anything that hasn't been covered, so what we'll do at the end of this, we'll download that as well as a Q&A history, and then we can go through that and email out to everyone with some more information. So thank you, Steve. Trevor spoke far too long, so it's his fault that you didn't have the time to talk at the end. But look, it's been really good. It's obviously a taster course for something that we're looking to do early in the new year, and we'd like to help as many people as we can as well get into a new IT career as part of that career transition. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to all the presenters. Really appreciate your time today in sharing your knowledge and expertise. And there's a lot of years of knowledge and expertise looking around the table from what I can see. Thank you to all the attendees. Really appreciate your sticking it out to the end and seeing it all the way through. Apologies, we're a little bit over time, but we'll send out an email with all of the information and the short version of the recording. And we look forward to keeping in contact and have a great rest of your day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Bye.